That strange feeling when you reach for your phone almost automatically, not because you really need something, not because there's an urgent message, but simply because a slight tension arises inside, and your hand is already moving on its own. Sometimes it happens even when you're tired, when you already understand that another video won't make you happier, but you still open the app, scroll, refresh, again and again. And at some point, a quiet thought appears. Why am I doing this? Why is it so hard to stop? From the outside, this is often called weakness, a lack of willpower, addiction. People say a person simply doesn't know how to control themselves, that they need to be more disciplined, more mindful, more put together. But rarely does anyone talk about something else, about the fact that this behavior doesn't arise out of nowhere, that there is a system behind it, a repeating neurobiological process that has been forming for years, and that more is happening here than it seems on the surface. When we talk about dopamine, it's often simplified to the pleasure hormone, as if it's some substance responsible for joy. You get it? Good. You don't get it? Bad. But reality is more subtle. Dopamine is connected not so much to pleasure as to anticipation, to expectation, to motivation to move towards something. It's a chemical signal that tells the brain, pay attention, there might be something important here. Research in neuroscience shows that a dopamine spike often occurs not at the moment of receiving a reward, but at the moment of predicting it. Not when you've already gotten the result, but when you're just hoping to get it. And if you translate this into everyday life, a lot starts to make sense. You open a notification not because you already know there's something valuable there, but because there's a chance, a small probability, a microscopic expectation. And it's exactly that expectation that keeps you hooked. The brain loves uncertain rewards. When the outcome isn't guaranteed, the reward system activates more strongly. It's the same principle slot machines operate on. You don't know whether you'll win, and that's exactly why you keep playing. Social media, infinite feeds, random videos, all of it is built on a similar logic. Not every video will be interesting. Not every post will be useful, but sometimes you come across something truly captivating, and the brain remembers that. It doesn't register the hundreds of empty scrolls. It registers the rare but vivid moment. And the next time, it starts the cycle again. This doesn't mean some external force is controlling you. It means your motivation system works exactly the way it was evolutionarily designed to. It searches for signals of significance. It reacts to the probability of reward. But there's another layer. If you look closely, in the moments when your hand reaches for the phone or another task, there is often more than just interest behind it. Sometimes it's a way to regulate your state. Boredom, anxiety, an awkward pause, uncertainty. The brain doesn't like suspended states. It wants clarity, movement, a signal. Dopamine becomes a way out of internal discomfort. A small burst of novelty creates a sense of shift, brief but noticeable. And if this repeats often enough, a habit forms, not because a person is weak, but because the system learns. When I don't feel okay, here's a quick way to change my state. Sometimes, this connection starts forming in childhood. If the environment was unpredictable, if adults' attention was unstable, if approval didn't always come, the brain might get used to a model of sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And that uncertainty becomes familiar. Later, in adult life, similar mechanisms activate in the digital environment. Random likes, unexpected messages, rare but bright moments of recognition. The nervous system recognizes a familiar rhythm. This isn't a conscious choice. It's pattern recognition. It's important to understand that dopamine itself is neither bad nor good. It's just a neurotransmitter. It's involved in learning, goal setting, and seeking novelty. Without it, there would be no drive for growth, exploration, or creativity. The paradox is that the same system that helps a person create can also make them dependent on constant stimulation. The same sensitivity to novelty that underlies curiosity can turn into an inability to tolerate silence. And this isn't a moral issue. It's a matter of calibration. There are people whose dopamine systems are more sensitive. They get excited faster. They ignite quicker. They're drawn to the new. They can be very creative, quickly grasp ideas, find unexpected connections. But this sensitivity has a price. It's harder for them to stay in monotonous processes, harder to tolerate the absence of quick results, harder to endure delayed rewards. And often, these are the very people who criticize themselves the most for being undisciplined. On the other hand, there are those whose systems are less reactive. It's easier for them to endure routine, but sometimes it's harder for them to feel strong motivation without external stimulation. Neither option is better or worse. These are simply different configurations of the nervous system. When people say dopamine controls you, it sounds as if you're a passive victim of chemistry. But reality is more complex. Dopamine doesn't directly control you, it amplifies what you direct your attention toward. If your attention constantly encounters fast, bright stimuli, the system strengthens exactly those. If attention gradually gets used to slower processes, the dopamine response shifts over time. The brain is trainable, but this process requires time and, more importantly, safety. Because behind excessive stimulation seeking, there is often fatigue or chronic tension. When the nervous system is overloaded, it looks for short regulatory paths, quick relief, a fast mood shift, and dopamine cycles become a way of coping. In those moments, it's not that you love pleasure too much. Often, it's that you've been in tension for too long. There's another paradox. When a person starts fearing dopamine, fearing pleasure, novelty, interest, they often intensify internal conflict. They divide themselves into a right and a wrong part, into discipline and weakness. But the brain doesn't understand such categories. It understands signals, repetition, associations. If you add shame to the desire for novelty, the system receives additional stress. And stress once again increases the need for quick regulation, and the cycle closes. Sometimes a softer approach is more effective. Not fighting the impulse, but studying it. Not prohibition, but observation. What exactly am I looking for right now? Entertainment? Distraction? Validation of my significance? Reduction of anxiety? The question itself already slows the cycle. It creates a pause between impulse and action. The dopamine system is not an enemy. It's an ancient survival mechanism. It helped our ancestors search for food, explore territory, find partners, and learn from experience. In the modern world, stimuli have become excessive, and a system designed for rare signals of significance now faces their overabundance. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human, with a sensitive nervous system in a hyper-stimulating environment. Interestingly, over time, the brain can adapt not only to high, but also to calmer frequencies of stimulation. When periods of silence repeat, when reward comes not instantly, but gradually, the dopamine system begins to recalibrate. At first, it feels unfamiliar. Boredom may arise, emptiness, inner restlessness. This isn't a sign that something is wrong, it's a transition. The brain learns to derive satisfaction not only from bursts, but from depth. And there is hidden power in that. When the dopamine system becomes less dependent on random spikes, the ability to choose appears. Not automatically reaching for the brightest, but noticing what truly matters. This isn't about rejecting pleasure, it's about expanding the range, so that joy can be both fast and slow, both bright and quiet. You don't have to completely rebuild yourself. You don't have to become an ascetic or an ideal of self-control. The nervous system changes gradually through repeated experience. Sometimes small shifts in rhythm are enough. Slightly longer pauses. Slightly more conscious choices. Not from fear, but from curiosity. Perhaps behind your sensitivity to dopamine cycles lies the same energy that makes you curious, receptive, able to get excited by ideas quickly. It's not a flaw. It's potential that needs more stable conditions. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not weak-willed. You are a human whose motivation system adapted to an environment saturated with signals. And if you begin to see this mechanism not as an enemy, but as a part of yourself, a different feeling appears. Not struggle, but cooperation. You can explore how your state changes when stimuli become quieter. You can notice how your body responds to a pause. You can allow yourself sometimes not to fill every second. And gradually, the impulse stops being an order. It becomes just a signal. If you recognize something about yourself in these words, perhaps there are other mechanisms you've been used to calling personal flaws that are actually adaptations. And if this resonates, there may be even more understanding ahead.